Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you. I'm not very good at Zoom, but it's sort of, I've not done this very much, but I hope this comes out very clearly. And I am here in Iceland, and that is where I'm from. And I've been working as a tour guide in Iceland most of my adult life. And right now we are in the midst of winter, and it's been a lot of snow, but it's slowly melting. But then we'll have a new snow coming probably in a few days.
Awesome. Well, we are very lucky. Done a few Iceland tours over the years and always worked with Sola. She's a phenomenal guide. She keeps us very entertained and takes us to all of the most interesting parts of the island. So I would love to know if you were taking people to Iceland for the first time, what are the must-see places? What can't you miss?
Usually, when people come here for the first time, they want to see what we call the Golden Circle, which is sort of the national park of Thingvellir, where you have the Viking Parliament, which is the oldest. All right, and then secondly, you want to see the South Coast, and the highlights of the South Coast are some very beautiful waterfalls and the Black Sand Beach, which has been becoming very popular. So that's sort of the two highlights that people that have a very short amount of time they want to see.
Okay, so the Golden Circle to see the waterfalls in the national park, as well as the South Coast to see the black sand beaches and some of the really beautiful cliffs and things down around there. I know that we had a really great time last year seeing the South Coast and spending some time. There's like the Glacier Lagoon and the Diamond Beach where there's the different pieces of ice that wash up on the beach, and there were some phenomenal photos from that trip. So what about someone visiting again for the first time? What are the number of days you'd recommend? What's the minimum that you would need to see Iceland and experience it? And if you want to see everything, how long would you recommend?
Okay. If you have just a very short amount of time, I would still say that 3 or 4 days would be good because you're coming from so far away that 3, 4 days would be a minimum. But if you have plenty of time and you want to explore the whole island, you can use at least a week or 10 days, and then you can see quite a lot. Both either go around the island or go into the interior or explore the West Fjords. No.
Awesome. Okay. And would you recommend people, how do you recommend getting around the island? Do they need to hire a driver and a guide? Can they drive themselves? How do you typically recommend seeing Iceland?
It all depends on your interest, of course. If you want to be on your own and you don't want to have someone leading you, then you would, of course, want to explore on your own and rent a car. But I would not recommend it for the wintertime. The road conditions can be quite severe, and it's not for the unexperienced. So you have to really know what you're doing because it can be very icy and windy. But in the summertime, definitely, if you don't want to have a guide with you, you can definitely explore the island on your own. Then the conditions are easy and the roads here are fine and there's not that much traffic in comparison to your country.
Sure. What about driving? Do you drive on what side of the road do you drive on? Is it the same?
The same as you, yeah.
Okay. So
Not
it's
like
not
UK,
like going to
Japan or
yeah.
Yeah, so
The UK or India where you're like,
yeah,
oh wait, everything is backwards.
yeah, no.
What about your favorite season for visiting? I know summer obviously is the peak tourist season. Is that when you most recommend folks visit, or do you think there are other good times of year to visit?
Course, the summer is it is a beautiful time of the year when you have 24 hours of daylight and it is the peak season, but all months are different and every season has its own charm. So definitely it just depends on what time you have and what like to see and do. So I mean every time in Iceland is beautiful.
What about the places that are maybe more off the beaten path? Are there any, especially if you had, say, 2 whole weeks in Iceland, what are the destinations you might recommend people go that not very many tourists visit?
Then just from my heart, I mean, that's what I like. So I like remote places. So my favorite is the interior of Iceland. And for that, you need a four-wheel drive because there are many river crossings and things like that. And then the East Fjords and the West Fjords. Those are sort of, and I love the West Fjords even more than the East Fjords. So beautiful places. Yeah.
And are those, how long in general, if you wanted to get to those more remote places, is it a day drive? Is it several days driving? I know it's not that big of an island.
No, but still, we don't do it like in America where you drive, for a day or 3 days to get somewhere. But if you, for example, if you want to go to the West Fjords, it will take you from Reykjavik to Ísafjörður 6 hours straight driving, and then you can explore the area. And if you go there, you want to stay a few days, just on the way and around the area. Yeah. But if you go to the east, it's further. So you need to get there, you go to the glacier lagoon and then further. So it takes more time.
Okay. What about if you're a solo female traveler in Iceland? Are there any safety concerns? Do you have any special recommendations for women who might be traveling to Iceland on their own?
Not really. It's a very safe island. Unless you want to party downtown, maybe that's can be a bit dangerous. But out in the countryside, it's very safe, definitely. And in the summertime, you have 24 hours of daylight, so you don't have the darkness and it's just a very safe place.
That's great. I know it seems like a country that if you were going to be taking, a solo trip for the first time, it's not that far from the US. I feel like especially if you're on the East Coast, you can get there in a 4 or 5 hour flight. And it sounds like if you, keep your wits around you, right? Use common sense, it can be a safe place to visit, even as a solo female traveler.
Yeah.
What about your favorite foods to try? I love traveling places and trying different foods, trying the local foods. I know Iceland has a unique food scene, so I would love to hear what are your recommendations of foods you can't miss?
Okay. Well, Iceland, we are a big fishing nation. We are one of the biggest fishing nations in the world. So you cannot leave Iceland without having some fish. And we have a lot of fresh, good fish and very good quality. So fish is definitely a must, and we have many good fish restaurants. And then, of course, the second is the lamb. And I know some people don't like lamb, but it is sort of organic lamb because they're up in the mountains on their own, and it's very, very, it's very fresh. And then, for example, langoustine, which is the Icelandic lobster, very small but very fine. That's also very nice. For the more seasoned travelers or the more experienced people, they might want to try the shark. It's terrible. Well, some people really love it, but it has a required taste. Fermented shark.
Fermented shark. What kind of shark is it?
It's the Greenland shark.
Okay.
No.
So they're really kind of big and slow sharks, right? That live really deep in the ocean.
Yes, they get up. They're very interesting creatures. They get up to 400 or 500 years old.
Wow.
They don't have any predators, so yeah.
And I assume, how do they fish for them? I'm now very curious.
In the old days, they were caught because of their liver. And the liver was a very good lighting material. And then they had the fish, but the shark doesn't urinate, so it goes into the blood. And if you don't process it thoroughly, it tastes of ammonia. So they figured out a way to process it to be able to eat it. So they put it in the ground for some months, and then they hang it up to dry it.
Interesting.
Yes. So there's a festival in February when people eat the ferment. It's not like a steak or anything, just little bits.
Got it. So worth a taste if you're adventurous. Kristen has a question about finding vegetarian food. How easy is that, especially say outside of Reykjavik and some of the cities?
No problem, because now tourism has increased very much, and with it has the qualities of restaurants. So wherever you go around Iceland, you'll find good food, and also for vegetarians and other special requirements, definitely.
That's great.
Yeah.
My final question before I open it up to more Q&A from the group is, are there certain experiences or parts of Iceland that you would recommend having a guide with you where, you know, either because of the history and culture, you'll get a lot more out of it by having a guide, or because of navigating the place, you really recommend having a guide?
Yeah, there are, I don't have anything specific in mind, but there are places where it would be much better to get a guide, have a guide to drive you, where sort of like up in the mountains and river, you have to have some experience in crossing rivers and etc. And also in certain places, you get more in-depth information about the country and the feeling about the country if you have a local person, you know, where all my ancestors have been here forever, for 1100 years. So you'll get a very different feeling than just, you know, go by Google Map.
Yes.
So,
And in general, do most people in Iceland speak English? How easy is it to navigate as a person who does not speak Icelandic?
well, you have to learn Icelandic, no? No, no. We have, and everybody speaks English in Iceland, or pretty much everybody. So it's not a problem.
Awesome.
So,
We have Yolima on the call, who hosted
okay.
our trip last October to Iceland.
Mhm.
Is there anything you, Yolima, really recommend, or any questions you have for Sola?
Oh, first of all, hi, Sola.
Hi, hi, nice to see you again. Mm.
I love Sola. I was very lucky to tour twice Iceland. The first one was in February. In February, when it was the real Iceland everywhere. I mean, cold ice, but fantastic landscapes. And I just was with Sola last October, and the landscape was all in orange and browns. It was fantastic. We went to see the most magical waterfalls. One of my favorite cities is, because that's the only one I can name, is Vic. But the cities there and the streets have the long, long, long names. Um, if you can even go for like 5 days, go. It's a fantastic place to visit. It's a fantastic, like Sola says, it's very safe. I love the food. It's fantastic. Yes.
Awesome.
Nice to see you.
Well, I will open it up to questions. I see, April, you asked, are there kayaking tours, river, ocean, bay? Sola, if you want to talk about any of that, sort of, if someone is interested in getting out on the water, what are your recommendations?
There's one company in the south, and they offer kayak tours. You start out in a little lake, and then they lead you out into the ocean. And it's sort of sheltered though, and so it's an interesting tour. And then there are a few places in Iceland, not many. One place in the south where you can go river rafting, and one place or two places up north where you can go river rafting. Depends on, you know, how if you want a grade 2 or a grade 4. Yeah.
Sure. What about the weather? Is it cold year round? What are the temperatures in the different seasons?
It's not Hawaii, but the summer is cool, and the winter it can be cold and it can be mild. So it depends. It just depends. You can be lucky, and it can be very cold, or no, or very mild, and then it can be cold. You never know. But it is an island, and it can rain. So I always recommend rain gear. But even in the summertime, I have with me a down jacket and my shorts and rain gear.
Awesome. So layers, lots and lots of
Yes,
layers.
yes, yeah, definitely.
Valerie wants to know about the best months to see the Northern Lights.
Okay, that's very simple. As of September until April, because you can't see them in the summertime, it's too bright. So as of, yeah.
So September to April, and I assume you just kind of have to get lucky. There's no, the more days you spend in Iceland, the more chances you have of seeing it.
Yes, yeah. It depends on the solar activity and if the sky is clear.
Got it. Awesome. Related to that question is about experiencing the midnight sun. Is that something, if you come in the summer, that you get the chance to experience?
Yes, especially if you are up in the north, then you can, if you stay up late, you can just, and if it's clear and nice weather, you can just see the sun roll along the horizon, which is beautiful. Yeah.
And what about in the winter? How many hours of sunlight do you typically get?
None, no, no, I'm kidding. No, in the darkest of the winter, it starts to get light around 10:30 and dark again around 3:30. So
Okay.
3:34. So that's the darkest time. But now, for example, it is slowly getting brighter.
Great. Yes, I know. I can see that
I
there
see
is
it even
some
in my window.
sunlight.
Yeah, it's
And
slowly
it's
getting darker. So I will end in the dark.
yes. There was another question about the Blue Lagoon. How
Mhm.
long do you recommend visiting for? And I would also love to know, what do you think the differences are between the Blue Lagoon and the Sky Lagoon? I know you can visit one or the other. Do you recommend both? What is your favorite?
They're very similar in a way. So I've asked people, I ask often the guests, what they prefer, and they just, they like them both. So it's not really, you can't say go for this or that. It's just a matter of preference. They are not that different. The Sky Lagoon is smaller and it does not have the turquoise water. So it's sort of different water and you have, it's an infinity pool, so you have ocean view. So in that sense, it's different. And
Okay.
also, it's closer to Reykjavik, much closer.
Yes, I know we
Oh.
usually go to the Sky Lagoon for that reason. It's a
Yeah.
little bit closer, but I know the Blue Lagoon is right by the airport. So if you just wanted, I guess, to go straight off the plane,
Exactly, yeah.
maybe that's a good option.
That's also very good, yeah, to relax. But we have another bathing place, which is called Hvammsvík, because you have small groups. And it's by the coast, by the ocean. So you can go into the little pools and then walk into the ocean.
Okay, so like
And
you can do
it's
your
smaller.
cold plunges and your
Yeah.
warm
Yeah.
relaxation. I like
Yes.
that idea.
It's smaller and more, different.
Is it on the south coast or how far out of Reykjavik?
40 minutes from Reykjavik,
Okay.
towards the north,
Awesome. What about Heather was wondering about the ideal times to visit. Would you recommend March or September? And I think you talked about this a little bit of the ideal trip length depends on how much you want to see. But if you had to tell someone this is the perfect length of trip, what would you recommend?
So if you, for example, if you want to go to the glacier lagoon, which is really beautiful, you will need at least 4 days.
Okay.
So I would say 4 or 5 days for that. March is winter, and if you are in September, we are slowly in the autumn. So it's different feel. And
Okay.
yeah.
So maybe a little warmer still in September than March if you cared about the temperature outside.
Yeah.
Do you get more, is there rain frequently year round, or are there certain months with the most rain?
There's nothing here in Iceland, you never know. So it's it is sometimes it's a lot of rain, sometimes little. So you can't predict anything. No.
Okay. April also had a question about whale watching and wildlife tours. What are your recommendations? What are the best times of year to see whales, and what parts of the island do you need to go to for those?
We have now whale watching the whole year round, but usually the best season for it is in the early summer. And then the summertime, because it's warmer out there. It can be rough out in the ocean in the wintertime, but you can see them all around, and you can see them from Reykjavik. They have tours from Reykjavik harbor, but also Húsavík up north has made a big name for them as a whale watching center.
Okay. I've heard about puffling season and the baby puffins.
Yes.
What time of year is that? And if you want to experience the puffins, where do you go?
You have to go a little bit out. They have puffin tours out of Reykjavik. So you can go on a boat and they take you to a little island. Or you can, if you go to the south coast, to Dyrhólaey or the Black Sand Beach, they have the puffins there. And that's at least 2 hours from Reykjavik, just driving. And the
So-
puffins, you can see them from May until 15th of August, then they leave.
Wow, exactly the 15th of August. Okay.
Give and take 2 or 3 days. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So they're migratory species and they come
Yes.
to spend their summer in
Yeah.
Iceland.
Yeah, they come to lay the eggs because they can't lay the egg, one per couple, and they can lay it in the water. So.
Okay. Well, that's one of I heard an interview with someone who got to see all the baby puffins hatching, and it's now on my bucket list to experience baby puffins in Iceland. So I guess I have to in August.
Then you should go to the Westman Islands.
Okay.
In the autumn, because the little babies, instead of going into the ocean, they fly into town because they see the city lights. So you could maybe join the rescue team.
Okay. And is the Westman Islands there, can you access them via ferry from Iceland? Okay.
Yeah. It's just a ferry from the south coast. It takes half an hour. It's a beautiful island.
Oh, awesome. All right. Well, does anyone else have questions? Feel free to put them in the chat, or things we haven't touched on about Iceland that you're curious about. I'm not seeing anything. So, oh, perfect. Money, denomination. What money do you need? How easy is it to use cash? Do you recommend having cash, or is it better to just use a card?
Just use a card. You can get we use a lot of card, we always use cards, but we have ATMs everywhere. We have used Icelandic krona, but you can pay everything with your credit card. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Even in small towns, people will accept.
Yeah, it's not that undeveloped. No.
And packing. What are your top packing recommendations?
Rain gear. Sorry. Yeah. Good shoe wear, like good sturdy shoes and layers. And always, just in case, I would always say rain pants and rain jackets.
Okay.
Even, it doesn't matter summer or winter, gloves, hat, and rain gear and layers.
What about in terms of shoes? Do you recommend like hiking boots, snow boots? What type of shoes are appropriate?
I usually just use hiking boots.
Hiking boots? Okay.
I used to have, now I have like softer hiking or lighter hiking boots. It depends on how long if you're just going to walk for half an hour, 1 hour, you just need lighter hiking boots. Yeah.
Okay. But something that can't, keeps your feet dry, I guess.
Not sneakers.
Yeah. Laura has a question about any tips for budget-minded travelers. What do you recommend in terms of budget? What are ways that you can keep costs lower while traveling to Iceland?
Iceland is expensive. It is. And just in last year, I seen a big difference in the prices. And the most expensive part is the accommodation. So that's the biggest, where you can save the most is just on choosing the accommodation. That's sort of the biggest factor. And then we have, food is very expensive in Iceland. So if you choose, nice, different kind of restaurants or little food, we have food halls and things like that, or little food stands, or a hot dog, or just go to the supermarket and cook yourself. So that's these are the two biggest factors that you can save on.
What about with accommodations? Do you typically just recommend guest stay at hotels? Are there B&Bs or guest houses that you can stay at if you want to save money? What about Airbnbs? I know some destinations, they're now kind of frowned upon and there are less options.
Well, we still have here in Iceland a lot of Airbnb. So there are many options, both in Reykjavik and out in the countryside, definitely. And then we have all the spectrum of hotels. So we have from Airbnb and guest houses and little huts and all the way up to 5 stars. So it depends on your budget.
Got it. Awesome. And Valerie asked, where do you recommend your lodging be based? If you wanted to do a tour, maybe where you don't have to change hotels multiple times during your trip. Where do you recommend sort of basing yourself so you can do lots of day trips?
Okay, I always recommend not to have a base because because then you end up driving a lot of back and forth the same, and you know. But if you really want to do that, if you want to go to the south, I would have a base, and if you want to go to the like a glacier lagoon, then I would go and have a base, and also in the national park. I would have the base either in Hella or Vík or Kirkjubæjarklaustur, somewhere along there. Out from Reykjavik to the east.
Mhm.
And if you want to explore the west, I would have the base then in Borgarnes or in Stykkishólmur. That would also be a good place. Yeah.
So not, you know, worth visiting Reykjavik, but not making it your base since you'll end up driving extra.
Yes. For example, like if you do the Golden Circle and the South Coast, you know, it's better to be a little out of Reykjavik, and you'd also save money because it's a little less expensive to stay out of Reykjavik, like in Selfoss. Yeah.
Sure. Awesome. Well, I am gonna, what we always do here is we open up a poll where you can put in your name and your email. That way we'll send you a recap of this call with all of Sola's recommendations. That way, in case you weren't taking notes, which most people are not, we've been taking notes, so we'll send you all of the recommendations. I'm gonna launch the poll, so if you want to be included in that email, you can send us your name and your email address. You should see it pop up on your screen. And the other thing that I'm very excited about is we're going to be working with Sola to run a trip in February of 2026 to Iceland. We've just launched that trip on our website, and so I will follow up with everybody here with a link. If you're looking for a pre-planned easy trip where all you have to do is show up in Iceland and you get to meet Sola in person and have her guide you around the incredible country, then we would love to have you on that trip. It'll be in early February, so good chances of Northern Lights sighting, hopefully. Cold, we won't lie, it will definitely be a cold trip, but we're excited for the chance to see the Northern Lights, hopefully, as well as see lots of the national parks, the waterfalls, the beaches, etc. So if you're willing to put up with some cold weather for an incredible trip, then we are very excited about this in February. And feel free, if you have any last questions, put them in the chat, but we have really enjoyed having you on this call and hope that it's been very helpful and informative, and we look forward to staying in touch.